And last week we were at number 8, and I said it would probably be 8A. And that is essentially where we were. We talked about number 8 in this survey done by a church in Choctaw, issued language as one of the top 10 surveyed problems, sins, difficulties in the church. And that gossiping / bad language was sort of how that divided out. Last week we talked about gossiping. This week, we're going to hone in on bad language. Now, we're going to do 2 or 3 little avenues of this here. Not just foul or crass language, but language that is bad in other aspects, like maybe attacking others, saying things that are not edifying. So we're just going to lump all of that into the bad language category today. Here's one about bad language I found I thought was cute. With Yoda. Bad language you speak, the dark side you have joined. On a more serious side, George Herbert wrote, good words are worth much and cost you little. Think about that a minute. Good words are worth much, but they don't cost you anything. So number 8 on our list today, 8B, is language, bad language. Do we, as Christians, is there a problem in the church with bad language, any aspect of it? Do you know or have you come across Christians who use some blue language on occasion? Do we look at cuss words, blue language, as one of the big no-nos? Or sometimes do we look at it cute and go, ha, 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 it's funny. We just let it slip. Speaking is one of the most important things people do. Why is that? Why is speaking one of the most important things that we do? How much of our life is affected by speaking? And I think actually, as it comes down to it, we could really take a slash and put right there, speaking / communicating is one of the most important things that we do. With words, we promise, I'll do this, I'll help you out. We inform, we tell others what's going on in our lives. We tell things to others that we have become aware of. With words, we direct. For those of you who are bosses or have been managers in the workplace, your words, you tell people what you want them to do or what you need them to do. With words, we comfort. Someone's lost a loved one, we try to comfort them with actions, but we also try to comfort them with words. When someone is hurt, you know, when your kids get hurt, what's one of the first things you do? You try to talk them through and say, it's okay, I'm here. We try to comfort with the things that we say. We try to persuade. Think about this as we are carrying the gospel, giving the words of Jesus to others. Is that really not what we're trying to do? We're trying to persuade them and show them that this is the way. With our words, we try to persuade people. We try to correct people. Again, for those who have had children, those who have children, you try to correct them with words. Speaking is one of the most important things we do. We do a long list of things with our words. Through words, people hear that which we believe is most important. Generally, if you say something to somebody, is it important to you when you say it to them? I'm getting some head noddings. Everybody need another cup of coffee this morning. But generally, don't we believe that if we say something, it's important to us? When you're teaching your children about something they either should do or should not do, you're teaching them that because it is important to you. In the workplace, when you're trying to convince someone you need them to do something, it's important to you. When we are conveying our words, generally the words we convey have some level of importance to us. Let's talk a little bit about bad language. Bad language, vulgarity. Some of these actually get linked pretty closely together. Bad language, vulgarity, cursing, lying, swearing, attacking others. Three of these in our culture we would generally link pretty close together: vulgarity, cursing, and swearing. Lying is in it. Looking at the top 10 problems and sins, we would sort of push it off in its own category. But bad language, while we can think of it as, blue language, curse words and things like that, I think bad language covers a whole span of things. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines foul language as offensive or vulgar language. Typically, Americans feel that this means profanity or the four-letter words. However, foul language encompasses far more than the four-letter words, especially as it pertains to Christianity. Are what we call the four-letter words what we should view as the only bad words in our faith? I mean, even in our culture, they used to be the words you could not say publicly, and now they just happen all the time. There are more words than that would fall into what would be bad language for us as Christians. How many remember the day when those select four-letter words, the reaction that if somebody slipped one out at school, everybody at school went, "Oh." How many of you remember that time? And like, do you know what you said? How many of you knew that if you let one of those words slip out in front of mom and dad, it was especially bad? You might let it slip at school and go, "Phew." But if you ever let it slip out in front of mom and dad or grandparents, it was not good. Being a preacher's kid, I couldn't even, let those things slip out at school because everybody looked at you a little harsher and said, "You said what?" But our culture has changed, has it not? Very rarely do kids, they may get in trouble at times for saying these words at school, but nothing like it happened back for some of us, Jimmy, in our day when we were younger and in school. It has changed. Here's the thing about it from our standpoint as Christians, nothing about it's changed. While society and culture may have changed in its acceptance of foul language, it hadn't for us. Got a question for you. Is there a list of forbidden cuss words in the Bible? If you go through the Bible, say, "Thou shalt not say this, 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 and this." It doesn't. But what it does say is far more broad than defining just a set of words that are viewed as vulgar. Because really, when it comes down to it, foul language or language that is designated as vulgar is generally designated by that what? That culture. A word that may be vulgar in our American English may not be in somebody else's language or culture. So there's really not a list per se of no-no words. Ephesians 5:4 says, "Nor should there be obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving." Obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking. Regardless of the culture you are in and the time you are in, there are words that are considered obscene, foolish talk, or coarse jokes. Ephesians says we're not to be a part of it. So regardless of whether a certain set word is defined as a vulgar word, if it's defined as vulgar within your culture, we as Christians should not be a part of it. Regardless of the words in our English language deemed cuss words, if a word or phrase is unwholesome, vulgar, foolish, filthy, crude, or obscene, this, the writer said, it is sinful to say. If to you a word is a bad word, what should you do? What should you do? Not say it. If to you a joke is improper, what should you do? Not tell it. If a word or phrase is viewed as unwholesome, vulgar, foolish, filthy, crude, or obscene, don't. This quote, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God, or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." If you're using language as improper, are you trying to please God? Or are you doing it to please your friends or those you're around and be a part of the in crowd by using that kind of language? It's Galatians 1:10. Am I trying to win the approval of human beings, or am I trying to win the approval of God? We are called to go out and make disciples, but we cannot win people to Christ by looking like the world. What does your language say to those who see you if they know that you profess to be a follower of Christ and they see you speaking like the rest of the world, using the same language as the rest of the world? What does it say about your witness for Christ? Everybody's awful quiet this morning. I heard one. Hypocrite. Is there anything to be gained for your witness or your testimony for Christ if you are seen talking, using blue language, using borderline language? Is there anything gained by that at all? Or is it strictly harmful? It can push people away. Also, people look at that and say, well, you're no different than anybody else. This quote was, I thought, pretty neat. Who decided cussing is cool? You know, at some point, you ever known kids that thought, when I get big enough, I'm just going to be able to say these words because, you know, they're big people words, they're bad words, but I'm going to get to a point I want to be able to say them. I'm going to tell on one of my twins, one of the boys. And you know 8-year-olds have this own unique perspective of their world. One of the twins recently told his grandmother, I can't wait till I get to be 21 because I can then say all the adult words. Which is sort of, it's sort of humorous from an 8-year-old perspective, but think about that. Can't wait till I get 21 because I'm going to say all the adult words. And he said he's just going to go down and he wanted to say them all at one time, get it over. But who decided cussing is cool? Our culture has decided cussing is cool. You know, it used to be a time when I was growing up and in high school, it was just only the certain group of people said those kind of words. But at some point in time, our society and culture has transitioned to, it's really cool. It's all over the movies. Used to be, if you had a bunch of foul language in a movie, it got an R rating, guaranteed. Doesn't have to be an R-rated movie now to get a bunch of cussing in it. Somewhere we have transitioned, and I thought this quote was pretty powerful. Who decided cussing is cool? It's the same guy that convinced Eve that eating the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden was cool. The same being that convinced Eve that, hey, it's all right to bite that fruit, is the one that's convinced us, hey, it's okay, it's cool to cuss, say bad things. Many people's speech is cruel and nasty or lazy and foolish. Their choice of words may show no respect to those people with whom they speak. The things you say and how you say them say a lot not only about you, but your level of respect for somebody you're talking to. How many of you would never, ever, 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 ever have blurted out a foul word in the presence of your grandparents? Hands up. Part of that was you knew you'd get in trouble, and it was just, but wasn't part of that because your level of respect for your grandparents was, one, you didn't want to disrespect them. Two, you did not want to damage how they viewed you in their eyes. How you say, what you say, says a lot about your level of respect for the person that you're talking to. You bring that a little closer and you get to your parents. One, it was disrespectful. Two, you might end up never getting to go out of the house again for a while. Even as I got up into my 30s and 40s, I didn't want to blurt something out in front of my mom and dad. It's just that I had the respect for them. They deserved better than that kind of language engagement with them. Think about this thought a minute. Even when the Christian is not speaking about God, his relationship with God should still have an effect on his words. If you are in a right relationship with the Father, that should be reflected in how you talk. Whether or not you're talking about your faith should be reflected in how you communicate about anything else. In the workplace, if you're dealing with an employee, your faith should be reflected in how you communicate to that employee. If you're at a restaurant and a social occasion with friends, how you communicate with them should also reflect your faith. If you're having an argument with someone, how you argue with them, the words you throw out at them, that should also reflect your faith. Even when you're not speaking about God, your relationship with God should impact what you say. The Bible on our speech says, Ephesians 4:29, do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, that it may benefit those who listen. How much better would our world be? How much stronger would the church be if all of us adhered to this? And unwholesome does not only cover foul, crass language as we would view it. You can spew out a lot of unwholesome stuff without using curse words. If you don't believe that, just go back to some social media pages during the last election and see if there wasn't a lot of unwholesome talk being spread all across the country. And it doesn't have to be foul language. Proverbs 13:3. Those who guard their lips preserve their lives, but those who speak rashly will come to ruin. We touched a little bit on this on gossiping last week. But what does this really tell you here? What's it mean by guarding your lips? Doesn't mean about throwing chapstick on before you go out in the cold air. To me, this really is a strong indication of think about what you're going to say sometimes before you say it. Those who speak rashly, what? Come to ruin. Some things to consider. When you're saying something or when you're having a discussion, could these words hurt the person I'm talking to? Ever been in a discussion, maybe it was a little argument, you've said something and immediately wanted to pull it back because you thought, that's going to hurt? Husbands and wives, ever said something during a discussion with your other half that you immediately wish you hadn't said? Because it was hurtful. When you're getting ready to blurt something out, think about it. Could it hurt who you're talking to? Could these words damage my testimony? And by testimony, it's not necessarily a verbal testimony about your faith or about Christ that you could damage. It's just the way you live your life. And sometimes the things you say can blow up the way you've been living your life. Ever seen someone who you thought was just, I want to be like them. They live in their faith the right way. And then they say something, you go, whoa. Sometimes the words you say damage the life that you're trying to live, the example you're trying to exhibit in your faith. Could these words slander or disrespect someone else? We talked in gossiping last week a lot about disrespecting and slander. Could the words you're about to say slander or disrespect somebody else? Could these words make me just as foolish as the foolish person I'm answering? Ever been in a discussion or an argument with somebody and you get all riled up because they said something to you and you blurt something out and then realize, I just look stupid? Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. The tongue has the power of life and death. Words can hurt. Anybody agree? The old childhood saying of sticks and stones might break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Don't ever tell that to your children or grandchildren. That is one of the biggest lies ever. I'd much rather, in many instances, have hurt physically than to have felt the words that somebody has said. Why do words hurt so much more in times? Bruises go away, words stay with you forever. What also do words say about the person that said them? Don't words generally reflect the true inner attitude of the person who said it? I think that's why words hurt so much, because a person you thought actually cared about you says something and it's like, whoa, that hurt. Words can hurt, but on the other side, words can build up. Words are not neutral, generally. They may be more hurtful or less hurtful, or more building up or less building up, but generally the words you say to someone will have some kind of impact on them. It's a matter of whether it's having the positive impact or the negative impact, and how much of either way. But words can either hurt or they can build up. And as Christians, what are our words supposed to do? Build up. When outsiders hear Christians talking to one another, They shouldn't hear the inappropriate language they themselves may use. Ever seen that? A couple of people get together and they use language together, but it's only them and they don't think anybody else is noticing. But outsiders should not hear us saying anything any appropriate way at all. We're not to be like the world. We're not to accept the things of the world. We're not to accept the language of the world. We're to be different. James 1:26. Those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is what? Worthless. If you can't control your tongue. Now, is that easy to do all the time? What's the Bible tell us about trying to control the tongue? Not easy. Because the tongue is like the rudder of a ship. It's a little bitty thing that causes a big boat to move in a big way. James 3:9-12. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, with it we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. Your language indicates your true inner. And if you're spewing out salty, foul language, it says a lot about the state of your spirit on the inside. Ephesians 5:4, nor should there be obscenity, foolish talk, coarse joking again, which are all out of place, but rather thanksgiving. The Bible commends some things that the Bible commends. The Bible commends honest speech. Ephesians 4:25, therefore each of you must put off falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. How do you speak to your neighbor? Truthfully. Like we said, lying gets in, we could do a whole 45-minute class on lying. But still, we are commended for our speech, our language to be good and to be honest. Show proper, 1 Peter 2:17, as the Bible commends civility and respect in speech. Show proper respect to everyone, love the family of believers, fear God, honor the emperor. Not to step on either side of the political line here. But whatever side of the political line you're on, that last section, honor the emperor. There was a time in our culture, while you may have politically disagreed with the people who were in office, you generally respected that position. You might talk negative about them or something, but yes or no, we have reached a whole new level of complete disrespect for people in positions of elected authority now. Positions of authority anywhere. Whether it's in the workplace, whatever. We have become very disrespectful. Our language is far from positive. And I hate to say this one, but the world doesn't have the full grasp on that. This is a problem that has entered the church in many places. We think because someone politically or socially disagrees with us that we can talk to them any way we want to and believe that it's okay. While we are to stand up for the truth and not to stand up for things that are wrong, how we do that matters. When Jesus dealt with the woman caught in adultery, what did he tell her after they were all gone? Did he tell her she's an evil woman, she's foul, she doesn't need to do anything, she's not worth anything? He told her what? Go and sin no more. He didn't endorse her sin, but he didn't belittle her. We have become a culture where belittling people who disagree with us is a way of life. And it has now it has seeped into the church, where we think because we're doing it for faith reasons, it's okay. And it's not. The Bible commends wise and informed speech. James 1:19, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. We talked about anger a couple of weeks ago. The Bible says that the mouth is a good barometer of the heart. Luke 6:45, a good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings up evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what? What the heart is full of. Whatever you're spouting off is a good indication of how your spirit is. Words are not neutral. They reflect either good or evil. I love this quote at the end. Nobody can really say, I didn't mean to say that. You ever heard somebody say, oh, they say it and they go, oh, I didn't mean to say that. If they didn't mean to say it, how did it get out? At some point, if you let something come out, you had some intent to say it. The Bible also commends the wisdom of not sharing everything with everyone all the time. Proverbs 11:3, the integrity of the upright guides them, but the unfaithful are destroyed by their duplicity. Ever known somebody that just had to tell whatever they knew? They just had to tell it. If they knew it, they had to talk about it. That's not bad language per se in the terms of cursing and blue language, but it's not productive, it's not edifying. If someone told that person something in confidence and then they turn around and tell it, and then we've talked about this one earlier again. Mark Amen wrote, the things you say about others also say a lot about you. Think about that. The things you say about others also say a lot about you. This quote, you never look good trying to make someone else look bad. Never look good trying to make someone else look bad. Christians should speak with grace, in other words, in a pleasant manner. They are gentle to people who are weak. They give honor to people in authority. They speak in a polite manner even when people are nasty to them. That's not what the world says right now, is it? What's the world say that we're supposed to act like if somebody talks bad to us? Does the world not tell us we need to fire back? Sit down at that in our technological culture, sit down at that keyboard, fire it off. Let everybody else see that you're fighting back. Even when it is necessary to warn someone severely, a Christian speaks in a firm manner, not a cruel manner. How many examples have we seen in recent years of someone professing to be a Christian who says something, while it may be right, in the most hateful way possible? Love always protects. As we're talking about here in the final 5 or 6 minutes about the part of the bad language attacking others, love always protects. There is no attack in love. If you are arrogant, harsh, impatient, unkind, and judgmental instead of compassionate, patient, and gentle, you are not acting as one of God's chosen people. Regardless, I love this part, regardless of how many graduate degrees you have, how many Bible verses you know, how many books you have published, how big your church, organization, or social media impact is. If you're any of those first, arrogant, harsh, impatient, unkind, and judgmental, you've got bad language going on. It doesn't even matter if you are right on the issue if you're acting in a wrong manner. You're adding to the overall problem rather than being part of the solution. Who, in his dealings with people, who generally did Jesus get the most upset with? The Pharisees. The people who should have known better. The people who profess to know the law, have the law in their hearts, on their minds. They knew better than how they were acting. He was more offended with them than he was the sinners. Look at the way he dealt with those he encountered who were in sin. He didn't endorse the sin, but look at the manner in which he dealt with the sin. Even if you're in the right on the issue, you can act in a wrong manner. The Pharisees were right in thinking adultery is wrong. They were wrong. It's quote, the Pharisees were right in thinking adultery is wrong. They were wrong in that they were acting in a mean instead of a redemptive way. This mob mentality currently has the internet on its side so that public shaming can now be national and even international. You can be right. You can have maybe the good intent, but you can still do it in the wrong way. How many of you have seen people who maybe posted something on social media, or maybe they just said it verbally, that you thought they intended that right, but boy, that came out wrong? Anger over a sin is appropriate. A group of believers saying enough is enough, this kind of behavior can't be tolerated anymore, is doing the Lord's work. But the way we talk about individual sinners, especially when we don't know the full story, is the portal to us being lured into sin by adopting a mean-spirited response to sin. We are to defend what's right. But how we defend what is right matters. Genesis 1:26-27, as we're going into an election cycle, I wanted really to throw this up. Because I've seen some things in past years where people posted attacking a person, calling them names from people who profess to be Christian. One even calling somebody they didn't agree on a social issue with equivalent to human excrement. Be careful when you do that kind of thing, because Genesis 1:26-27 says, God said, let us make mankind in our own image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. If you are about to throw out verbally or on social media, you're about to throw out to someone that you're really awful, you're not worth anything, you are just a pile of whatever. Just remember that all men are created how? In God's image. If you're attacking someone else in that kind of fashion, be careful. Because even that person who you may not agree with politically, religiously, or socially is still creating God's image and has some kind of eternal worth. Top 10 sins and struggles. Number 8, language. Bad language. Bad language does not necessarily just mean foul, crass language. It means a lot of different things, none of which are good for our walk. Anything else? We've got 30 seconds. If not, next week we keep climbing the list, get to number 7.